I'm Ryan O'Dowd, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine YouTube channel. Today we're continuing with section 612 of Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. Chapter 8. The Moral Socio-Sexual Circuit. As the caterpillar chooses the fairest leaves to lay her eggs on, so the priest lays his curse on the fairest joys. William Blake, Marriage of Heaven and Hell. The socio-sexual circuit is activated and imprinted at adolescence, when the DNA signal awakens the sexual apparatus. The teenager becomes the bewildered possessor of a new body and a new neural circuit oriented to orgasm and sperm-egg function. The pubescent human, like any other rutting animal, lurches about in a state of mating frenzy, every call gasping for the sexual object. Imprint vulnerability is acute, and the first sexual signals to turn on the adolescent nervous system usually remain fixed for life and to forever define the individual's sexual reality. We should not be surprised, therefore, at the various fetishes that are so easily acquired at these sensitive moments. In fact, we can tell precisely at what period in time a person was sexually imprinted on by noting which fetishes continue to turn him or her on. Black garters, booze, cool jazz, and crew cuts define the sexual signals of one imprint group, just as rigidly as sleeping bags, marijuana, heavy rock, and tight jeans define another. As Masters and Johnson have pointed out, most sexual dysfunctions are hooked into the nervous system at these adolescent moments of acute imprint vulnerability. The archetypical case is that of a male who, about to mate for the first time in the backseat of a car, was traumatized by a policeman flashing a light on him and his paramour. The imprint of that ghastly moment was hooked for decades. The male remained impotent until re-imprinted by Masters and Johnson in their clinic. The choices of heterosexuality or homosexuality, brash promiscuity or timid celibacy, etc., are usually imprinted by exactly similar accidents at points of imprint vulnerability. Just as biosurvival anxiety or security are imprinted by accidents in the nursing period, emotional domination or submission by accidents in the toddling period, symbolic dexterity or stupidity by the accidents of the learning environment. Primitives, so-called, know these facts and surround all the points of imprint vulnerability with rituals, ordeals, rites of passage, etc., well designed to imprint the desired traits of a well-integrated member of the tribe at that time. Relics of these imprint ceremonies survive in baptism, confirmation, bar mitzvahs, marriage ceremonies, the Masonic raising, etc. It's important to realize that chance, genetics, and malice are among the accidents that create imprints at the points of vulnerability. Most humans do not, due to accidents of this sort, imprint exactly the socio-sexual role demanded by their society. The fourth circuit can almost be called the guilt circuit. Almost everybody, almost everywhere, is quite busy hiding their real sexual profile and miming the accepted sex role for their gender and their tribe. In ordinary language, the imprint on the socio-sexual circuit is generally called the mature personality or the sexual role. It is the parent in the jargon of transactional analysis. It's amusing to note that Freud recognized the first circuit as the oral stage, the second as the anal stage, and the fourth as the genital stage. He did not notice the third semantic circuit, perhaps because as an obsessive rationalist he was so absorbed in verbal and conceptual programs that they were invisible to him, as water may be to fishes. Similarly, Jung described the first circuit as the sensational faculty, the second as the feeling faculty, the third as the rational faculty, and skipped the socio-sexual circuit entirely. There may be a clue here as to why Jung could not abide Freud's fourth circuit emphasis and built a separate, less sexual psychology of his own. Jung then went on to lump all the higher circuits into the rubric of the faculty of intuition. It is the function of the nervous system to focus, to select, and narrow down, to choose from an infinity of possibilities, the biochemical imprints which determine the tactics and strategies that ensure survival in one place, status in one tribe. The infant is genetically prepared to learn any language, master any skill, play any sex role. In a very short time, however, he or she becomes mechanically, robotically fixated to accept, follow, and mimic the limited offerings of his social and cultural environment. In this process, each of us pays a heavy price. Survival and status mean forfeiting the infinite possibilities of unconditioned consciousness. The domesticated primate inside the social reality tunnel is a trivial fragment of the potentials for experience and intelligence innate in the 110 billion cell human biocomputer. As Robert A. Heinlein wrote, a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, design a building, con a ship, Write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve an equation, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. But as long as we remain on the antique circuits, we are not very different from the insects. That is, just as the insects repeat their 4-stage program, egg, larvae, chrysalis, adult, from generation to generation, we repeat our 4-stage cycle also. The antique circuits are genetically conservative. They ensure the survival and continuation of the species, but do no more. For future evolution, we must look to the futuristic circuits. It's sometimes mistakenly stated that there are no universal sexual taboos. That is not true. There is one omnipurpose taboo which exists in every tribe. That taboo stipulates that sexuality shall not be unregulated by the tribe. That is, even though no other taboos are universal, the taboo against living without taboos remains constant. Every tribe has its own set of verbots and thou shalt nots, but no tribe allows the individual to choose his or her own set. An American president may not marry his own sister if he wants to get reelected. An Egyptian pharaoh had to marry his own sister. Confronted by this moral relativism, many social scientists have failed to notice the variable. Both the president and the pharaoh are expected to obey local rules. So are the Samoan, the Russian, the Inuit, and the Cuban. Why is there this taboo against sexual self-definition and self-actualization? Why is it that, while no two societies can agree on what is sexually good and sexually bad, every society thinks it must make some definition? The answer is that our first humanoid, symbolizing and conceptualizing ancestors, were very ignorant, but not at all stupid. They were ignorant of the laws of genetics, but they were smart enough to suspect that such laws exist. Sperm-egg fusion is surrounded by violent taboos and fierce tribal conformity, because the survival and future evolution of the gene pool depends upon which particular spermatozoa reaches which particular ovum. Etymologists confirm the Freudian theory that there are ancient linkages between the words for the sacred, the erotic, the obscene, the awe-inspiring, the awful, the divine, the thrilling. All of these are primitive, powerful, physiological responses to the mysteries of sexual attraction, mating, reproduction, inheritance, genetic drift, and future evolution. The earliest god forms found by archaeologists are pregnant goddesses and ithphilic gods, the most intolerant, bigoted, and recalcitrant of all prejudices. The very last to fade away after cosmopolitanizing contact with other tribes having different values are the taboos concerning the right way to reproduce. If one nation insists that the head of state must marry his sister, and another insists that he must not, both are acting on the assumption that the right way must be found and rigorously enforced. There are unknowns in the era of sexual attraction. He likes her, but she doesn't like him. There are unknowns in the area of mating. A young couple can make love once and the woman becomes pregnant. Yet another couple makes love for 3 years and the woman remains barren. Very puzzling and frightening for primitives in New Guinea or New Jersey. There are unknowns in the area of reproduction. Why twins? Why 3 boys in one family and 3 girls in another? Why miscarriages and stillbirths? There are unknowns in the area of inheritance. Why doesn't my son look like me? Many a domesticated primate has wondered uneasily, leading to a great deal of paranoia and male chauvinism. There are unknowns in the area of genetic drift. Modern researchers recognize 12 or more variables, but still have more questions than answers. Gods and goddesses are sexual and genetic programs expressed in primitive symbols. There are unknowns in the area of future evolution. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? The title of Gauguin's greatest painting is the basic ontological question. The totem pole, like the treatise on sociobiology, is an attempt to answer. Amid all these unknowns of sexual attraction, mating, reproduction, inheritance, genetic drift, future evolution, the shamans of every tribe try to establish guideposts to tribal gene pool survival. Thus, morality is invented. Sexual attraction, mating, reproduction, inheritance, genetic drift, and future evolution are all stochastic processes. That is, processes of which, out of a random series, some intelligence or something that can be metaphorically conceived as an intelligence is selecting a final outcome. That these stochastic processes overlap, as shown in our diagram, is intuitively obvious, and it is also obvious that the future is being selected every step of the way. Taboo and morality are tribal attempts to govern the random element, to select the desired future. That the whole chain is intelligent or manifests intelligence is the Lamarckian heresy which Darwinians have never quite been able to kill. Every time it's buried, it rises again in new form. The most able recent arguments of the neo-Lamarckian or meta-Lamarckian position, which the reader is cordially urged to read, are Timothy Leary's The Game of Life and Gregory Mason's Mind and Nature. Morality attempts to control the stochastic evolutionary processes at 2 points, interfering between sexual attraction and sexual consummation by taboos and commandments, or else interfering between mating and reproduction. The latter case is represented by infanticide, a widespread birth control measure always justified by the local shamans on magical grounds, e.g., the infants selected for sacrifice are breech births or birthmarked or twins, or in some way stigmatized by the gods. The actual function of such practices, of course, is population control, and such customs are most common on isolated islands where runaway population would be a disaster. Similarly, the Judaic taboos function to channel all sexuality into increased population, since the ancient Jews were surrounded by large and pugnacious empires eager to conquer them. They needed more boys for soldiers and more girls to breed soldiers. The most idiotic and superstitious taboos, from the rationalist viewpoint, always had some function when invented. For instance, the most pointlessly elaborate non-genetic incest taboos, in which virtually everyone in the tribe becomes unavailable sexually to everybody else, force exogamy, marriage outside the tribe. This creates affectional alliances between tribes and decreases warfare. Something like this primitive exogamy survived into very recent times in the custom of marrying one royal family to another. Every form of morality is, of course, irksome on some level to everybody, because no individual ever has exactly the sexual imprint desired by the tribe. The more sophisticated totem cults, the higher religions so dubbed by themselves, take account of this by the doctrine of atonement. In one form or another, this allows the individual to be ritually forgiven periodically for not being the perfect sexual robot decreed by tribal morality. This becomes hilarious only when one realizes that most of what domesticated primates are asking their priests to forgive them for consists of what Kinsley so accurately called normal mammalian behavior. Asterisk. This only refers to silly, inferior religions of other people, of course, and has no reference to sublime truths of the reader's own religion. Thus completes section 612 of Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. Tomorrow we'll pick up again in section 613, in the middle of chapter 8, the moral socio-sexual circuit. I will see you then. Alam.